Social aggression can also be used as a political tactic. If you want to attack your enemies, you don't have to use guns. You can use, destroy their relationships, isolate them, ruin their reputation, that kind of thing. Just make them look bad. It's also can be an effective way to promote ideologies. Any ideology you want to, you can probably use social aggression to benefit that ideology at the expense of any other ideology. I also want to mention that this is an important point. Magic is the art of deception, right? It's a fair definition. And we've all know what witches in popular culture do, right? They cast spells. They, can control perceptions because they use magic. They can turn you into a frog or an ogre or something ugly and disgusting looking, right? You could, regardless of whether or not Gomeshi is innocent, in a certain sense, the media, who brought us the stories about Gomeshi, can actually turn him into a frog because he might try and say, no, I'm not a frog, but all people hear is ribbit, 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 right? He's actually transformed in a real sense because our perception is now changed. So, next slide, please. Why do we have laughter? Does anybody ever wonder about that? It's kind of mysterious. I think I have some clues, so I can shed some light here. Clue number one is that laughter is, if you look at it objectively, it's like a fully blossoming smile. It's just the most intense expression of happiness that you're capable of, right? You just can't hold it back. You smile first, and then it just erupts, kind of like the way crying erupts from a frown, right? So we know it has something to do with happiness and the communication of happiness. Clue number two, our great ape cousins, they're ticklish. They play fight with each other. They make somewhat laughing-like sounds when they tickle each other. And lots of animals make laughter-like sounds when they play fight. So we can tell from that it has something to do with a challenge, perhaps, with conflict, with learning and experimenting with youth, and with learning and trial and error. Next slide, please. What about our uniquely human sense of humor? We're very smart animals. We always think of our sense of humor as being unique. Objective DNA analysis implies that humans are closest to the chimpanzees and bonobos, but there are a few researchers actually have argued that the fossil record implies that orangutans are our closest cousins. But there's video evidence, I'm going to go much further, and say that orangutans are actually human because we have something in common with them, something incredible. I don't think we can play the video though. We don't have internet, so I'll just tell you what happens. It's a young orangutan in a zoo, and this couple is there. The man grabs a cup, he puts a seed into it. By the way, this video got about 20 million views. He covers it up, shakes it around. He's playing a magic trick, right? Shakes around, he dumps the seed out, keeps shaking it, opens it up, shows the orangutan. Orangutan's just like looking amused, he's looking, watching, and then he stops and he's like, what? And then he starts laughing, rolling over and laughing, right? Looks very human. So that tells you something about laughter. It's the covering of deception. It's the uncovering of magic. It's seeing the hidden truth. It's learning. So, next slide, please. Researchers Daniel Dennett, who maybe some of you are familiar with, along with Matthew Hurley and Reginald Adams, contend that humor is about problem solving, real practical problem solving. And it's a reward mechanism that's designed to encourage us to detect and avoid faulty reasoning. We enjoy new insights, we enjoy the exposure of misconceptions, of deception and fraud, of pretenses, breaking or just bringing awareness to social taboos that we might not be aware of, and also hypocrisy and important truths that are easily missed. So it basically empowers and liberates the mind from all this confusion and misinformation that surrounds us. And that's why life is a constant learning experience. There's so much misconceptions out there. We have to constantly learn. Comedians are always making interesting observations about life. Have you ever noticed this? Have you ever noticed that? And that's what makes it so funny. They're noticing important truths. And have you ever noticed that you never hear anyone say, what could possibly go wrong? Except ironically, right? What could possibly go wrong? No one says that, right? It's a hindsight kind of thing, and it's always in the context of humor, right? Obviously something's going to go wrong. Also, when you tell jokes, when we hear a joke too many times, it starts to get old. Our sense of humor matures as we learn more, right? And after we've heard the same lesson a few times, it's no longer useful, right? So why would we need to laugh? Why would we need to enjoy it? It's just boring. Next. Same slide though. Okay, go back. Please, thank you. Thank you. We sometimes laugh when things don't go according to plan, right? Even, it doesn't have to be a joke, it's just something happened in our life, and it's maybe tragic, but if we can see the learning experience, like maybe things didn't go as bad as they could have gone, as long as there's a learning experience that we get on some deep level, we can laugh about it. Whereas there is a sort of a balancing act between the feelings of joy that we get from learning and the sadness from having things not go according to plan, or the anxiety that not being able to predict, the outcomes of your actions will provoke in people. So if you're very neurotic, and I'd say, imagine an animal that is very neurotic and has no sense of humor, and the other animals try and play fight with it. Well, what would it do? It wouldn't have a sense of humor. It would think it's really being attacked. It would maybe, stew and plot against it. Maybe when the animal goes to sleep, they'll try and kill it or something, right? That's why it's important to have a sense of humor. So, we can also learn from the mistakes of others, right? It's not nice to laugh at the misfortune of someone else, but I think the reason we do that is because we're learning from what they did, the stupid mistake they made. Like the Joker in The Dark Knight, who loves chaos, he likes when people's plans fall apart, he really enjoys that. He's a psychopath, he doesn't seem to feel the fear or the sadness, he just gets the laughter part, right? So maybe that's it, he doesn't have any shame or fear, which in some ways is good.
Yeah, I just have a comment about The Emperor Has No Clothes. Of course, the reason why it's a fairy tale is in real life, the kid would have the crap beaten out of him by the guards, right? And in the fairy tale, everyone gets enlightened, and that happens a lot more rarely in real life.
I think just the reason I want to use that as an example is that's what I think is going on a lot of the time, where everyone feels alone. It's just an illusion. They're keeping their thoughts to themselves, thinking they're the only one. And part of the reason we know that we're not alone is because of the internet. It's so easy to communicate and interact. And you can see, when a newspaper publishes an article that has a certain bias, you think, oh, okay, that's what people believe. But if you see it in the internet in an article, and you see all the comments, and you see they're all like 99% critical, you think, well, I guess no one's buying it then. Right? I guess I'm not alone. Next question. Excuse me.
Hi. So your mention of humor, it does tend to dissolve tension in situations. As far as I can tell, the best audience to reach would be not the people who are basically trying to take the fun out of things, but more those who are watching, the ones who haven't made the decision yet, the ones who are trying to understand. I've tried humor. It doesn't work. It's just, there's a level that's just lost. Have you had the experience yourself?
Well, I tried humor today, and I don't know if it worked that well. It's not easy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't have to try. The truth is funny, and as long as you're curious and you're honest, I think it's easy to be naturally funny. I think people drink and they tend to get more funny because they just sort of loosen up and they relax and they just spill things out. And that's it happens naturally. It's not that much. You can learn tricks about how to be funny, but I think it just happens naturally, and that's how it should be.
This video might just be the most important video I do all year. If you're going to actually pay attention to anything I say, pay attention to this video. Like this video, share this video. Because like the title says, this isn't merely about an internet meme. This is about the resurrection of an elder god. Now, I'm sure you've heard about Pepe and KEK, the apotheosis of Pepe himself, and the Egyptian god and the internet meme magic. Yeah, you've probably heard about this. You've seen the images. It's a great laugh. We all know about that. But just the other day, when I was sitting at the bar with my friend, having a good time, correcting the grammar of the pretty waitress that was there, I stumbled upon this on my phone, and it sent a cold chill down my spine. This is not merely an internet meme. Pepe, KEK, what's going on right now? There's a lot more to this. Now, the origin of the term KEK, it came from an onomatopoeia from the Korean language. It was used in the World of Warcraft, and essentially KEK, it came from Korea, and it replaced LOL, lulls, which fell out of favor on the chans. And so they started using KEK to mean LOL, that it's funny. Around the same time, there's the frog meme. The sad frog meme that eventually got titled Pepe. And eventually, these two memes collided. Now, the interesting phenomenon that allegedly started happening, and you can argue whether this is confirmation bias or not. It doesn't matter whether it is or not. Okay? If probability mattered, casinos wouldn't exist. Let me just put it that way. You started seeing a lot of dubs, triples, of quads on 4chan, particularly with Donald Trump and with Pepe and with KEK, right? Which at the time just meant LOL. But then somebody noticed something. That KEK was the name of an ancient Egyptian deity, a frog-headed one. Also worth noting, it can also be pronounced Kuk. Another coincidence. And allegedly, I haven't found documentation on this, but the hieroglyphic spelling of KEK, and there's a whole bunch of frog statues going around on Amazon with this, involve a person sitting in front of a computer, and on the other side is internet/meme magic. And thus the cult of KEK was born, the god of chaos, the god of primordial darkness that ushers in the light. Quote, KEK is the deification of the primordial concept of darkness in ancient Egyptian religion. He embodies the time right before the dawn, making him the bringer of the light. KEK is portrayed as a man with a frog head. In hieroglyphics, KEK is portrayed as a man seemingly sitting at a computer screen. Pairs and numbers are very important in the Ogdode mythology. Repeating numbers were used to create the universe according to the Ogdode. KEK is using 4chan as a vessel to spread his message and to usher in a new era of light. Now, thus far, we're just talking about the development of a meme, the strange coincidences that occur. We're talking, right now we're just talking about that gestalt face that represents the alt-right, that represents those of us that are so disaffected with this broken political economic system that we have. But, see, it starts getting weirder. First there's the fact that KEK, Pepe, emerged into plain sight on September 11th. This is when he was denounced by Hillary Clinton, and she shortly thereafter fainted and passed out on 9/11, which again, the 9/11, as well as the terrorist attack, the original 9/11, is also the Benghazi attack that she was responsible for. So we've got these repeating patterns. She declared him an enemy of the state. We have this old woman yelling about a cartoon frog, and she gets brought down on the anniversary of her treachery. Next, and that's pretty weird, but that's just karma, right? That's just normal vibrations. Next, somebody discovers an old 80s track, and it came on an album with a frog holding a magic wand, and it's titled Magic Sound. And the Italian lyrics, I'll just read you some of them. This is just through Google Translate, so, bear with me. Metallic harmony, reality, electronic video clips, civilization's praise, confused progeny of cells of rebels, flying to the universe. I will cross you, star, if you let me see. I'll stop. Ooh, ooh. Oh, and by the way, the band that performed that is named PEPE, and that stands for Point Emerging, Probably Entering. Now, if you look up this band's full album, on the front of it, they have the clock that's outside of Trump Tower. And next, is this enough? Well, there's more. There's also a band from 2010 called Las Pepas, and they have their song, The Frog Pepe. And the lyrics go, he's hopping, he never knows when it's time to stop. He's hopping, please sit down, you're dizzying me. These are a lot of coincidences coming up at the same time with this whole explosion of all of this into the mainstream, all at the same time. And if you want to pretend it's all just coincidence, then feel free. So go check out pepethefrogfaith.wordpress for all the details on that. This is just the quick version. KEK is one of the old gods. Is the god of primordial chaos, of endless laughter, and it's directionless laughter. Right now, KEK's working on our side. KEK's getting Donald Trump elected. This is wonderful. This is great. But KEK doesn't have a side. KEK laughs at everything. Azathoth, the blind, idiot god of perpetual laughter and darkness, doesn't have a side.
Hi guys, girls, and interested others. I thought I'd give you an update on the week's events. I've still been involved in discussions with the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, David Cameron, on the upcoming debate, and so I thought I'd fill you in on all of the events. But first of all, I want to make a slight detour. So one of the things that's happened to me since I put my lectures on YouTube is that I've frequently come across people claiming that I sound a fair bit like Kermit the Frog.
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here. Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here. Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here.
And wasn't really sure what to make of that. It might not have been my first choice for animal avatar, although I suppose it could be a lot worse. I mean, Kermit is a pretty good guy, and he's a decent spokesfrog, and a good organizer, and all of that. So, but anyways, I was thinking about that this morning, and I realized something, and I think it's an example of what the psychologist Carl Jung called synchronicity. Synchronicity. The simultaneous occurrence of events that appear significantly or meaningfully related, but have no discernible causal connection. And since I've been engaging in this free speech campaign, I have experienced a number of synchronous events. One of them was that when the Canadian Union of Public Employee Queer Caucus was sent the university a letter denouncing me, essentially, at exactly the same moment that letter was released, I had another Canadian Union of Public Employees president in my office who was a representative of one of the major groups on campus, who was talking to me about his concerns about the new university sexual harassment policy, which has been formulated in response to the demands of Kathleen Wynne's Ontario government, that threatens to make normal, let's call them misunderstandings, social misunderstandings, perhaps of a sexual nature, all equivalent to rape and to sexual violence. And this CUPE organization president was telling me about his concerns that that's going to put tremendous stress on the interactions between the people that he has to represent. So that was an interesting juxtaposition. He couldn't find anybody in the University of Administration to properly address his concerns. But then the frog issue, well, here's something cool. So you'll notice these sculptures behind me. They're made by an artist, a native artist named Charles Joseph. And Charles Joseph is a friend and now a brother of mine. As I've been inducted into their tribal group, which happened, by the way, the same week that I was being accused of being a racist by many people on the University of Toronto campus. So that was another major act of synchronicity as far as I was concerned. But one thing that's kind of cool is that I had this mask made by Charles a while back, and this is a frog. So there now, I've got my Quackawak The Kwakwaka'wakw people are a tribal people who live on the west coast of Vancouver Island, and they have a remarkable artistic tradition, which I've been very interested in. And I've had a lot of work done by Charles, who, as I said, is a residential school survivor. And he made this beautiful frog hat for me. And here's something cool too. So I asked Charles about the significance of the frog in Kwakwaka'wakw mythology, and he said the frog is a harbinger of dangerous times, because if anything pollutes the waters, then the frogs disappear. And of course that did happen almost all around the world a few years ago, because the frogs have very sensitive skin, and so they pick up anything that has gone wrong, and it interferes with their ability to reproduce and to live. And so I would say that as spokes frog, I'm announcing that there's something polluted about the water in which we're all swimming, and that we better clean it up, or there's going to be trouble. So there's a bit of synchronicity for you. So what I've been doing this week is working out the details of the debate with the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Science, David Cameron. And I met him Monday, November 1st, in the meeting. He threw a curveball at me, I would say. He said that if the debate was going to go forward, the university couldn't allow it to go forward if I was going to repeat my assertion that I would not use gender-neutral pronouns to refer to people if they asked me to do so. And you may know that the university has already sent me 2 warning letters telling me that my refusal to use these pronouns is in violation of university policy. We'll get to that in a while. And also contravenes the Ontario Human Rights Code. And also that as my employer, the university is as responsible for my speech acts as I am. And of course I did know that, because that's exactly why I made the videos to begin with, and that's exactly what I said in the videos. And so the university is distancing itself from me, because they know that if I get called for my hate speech because of my refusal to use these pronouns, then the university is just as guilty as I am. So what they're doing is setting up a series of legal documents that are designed to show that they acted in good faith, trying to discipline a wayward employee who is contravening these policies. And David implied quite strongly, I would say, that with each of those assertions, the probability that I will be able to teach at the University of Toronto come 2017, when I start my undergraduate teaching, is diminishing. I would like to close by noting that the university appears to have made its choice, and when I met David on Friday, we had a somewhat more heated exchange, still friendly, I would say, where I suggested that the university is making a big mistake here, and that they have to make a decision, as Jonathan Haidt said, about which side they're on, and that if the university has substantial legal resources, and if they were as concerned about free speech as I think they should be, and as their own policy, which I'm supposed to abide by the way, because I'm supposed to abide by university policies, the university policy on free speech, which I think is its highest order policy, suggests that I have the right, or perhaps maybe even the obligation, to criticize the university and society at large without reference to any preordained conclusions. And so I strongly suggested to David that the university is on the wrong side of this, that they picked the side of the social justice warriors over the side of freedom of expression, or perhaps even, as Jonathan Haidt has pointed out, perhaps even over truth, and that that's a huge mistake, that they're violating the most fundamental principle upon which the university is predicated, and I sincerely believe that to be the case. But I've decided to go forward with the debate because I believe that a flawed debate is better than none, and perhaps all you can hope for in the world of actuality is a flawed process that can grope and struggle, however wretchedly and awkwardly, towards something that might be regarded as the truth. So make no mistake about it, this is what's happened. The university has drawn the lines, and they have decided that if they have to support political correctness / social justice, neo-Marxism, or freedom of speech, then they're going to pick the former and not the latter. And so that's the state of the art at perhaps Canada's greatest educational institution. And I would say that's also a diagnostic indicator of the shall we call it, the state of the polluted waterworks that make up our current culture. And as spokesfrog for the nation, let's say, I'm stating quite bluntly that we better clean up our act or there's going to be hell to pay.
It's not easy being green, having to spend each day the color of the leaves, when I think it might be nicer being red or yellow or gold or something much more colorful like that.
We're going to talk about frogs.
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay? So yeah, when I saw the video that you put up, was it 2 days ago now? I think.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 days ago. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, and the next morning I got an email from my brother who also studies symbolism and is a very smart person, and he said, "Does Jordan know he's incarnating Pepe right now?"
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, I knew about Pepe, but I had nothing like that on my mind when I made the video. It never even entered my mind that was an association. I mean, I was just concentrating on this Kermit thing that had probably popped up about 2 years ago. And the first time someone said that, I thought, huh. So I went and listened to Kermit, and I thought, oh yeah, I do have a voice that's similar to that. I can get it lower, but my voice tends to rise up into my, it's because of tension. So
this is it. We need to do the metaphysics of Pepe. No one has done it yet, I think.
Yes, exactly. Well, and so, and then this strange occurrence, of course, also emerged with regards to the mask that Charles had made me, or the hat.
Yeah, which looks like Pepe.
I know, it even has red lips, which is staggering. It's absolutely staggering. And so I just about fainted after I posted that, and people pointed out the correspondence with Pepe. Really, I just about fainted. And that doesn't happen very often. Like I can only remember one other time in my life when I was shocked enough to almost faint. I just thought that was just too much. It was too much to bear. And then thinking about the frog correspondences since then, it has been, well, it's inexplicable and absurd. But so much of this is inexplicable and absurd. I don't know. I tweeted something yesterday. I looked up Maps of Meaning, my book, on the Amazon seller lists to see where it was located, and it was number 8 on books that are associated with behaviorism.
Yeah.
And it was bracketed by 2 other books. Mazarine Banerjee's book, and she's the person who invented the IAT that's been used to ferret out unconscious bias.
Oh my goodness.
And the other one was a book by Richard Bandler that I think was called Frogs and Princesses. And then to find out about KEK, I didn't know about KEK. And anyways, and then today I was watching Nina Paley, who's an absolute genius, and she's animated the plagues that Moses called down on the Pharaoh. And of course, one of the plagues was a plague of frogs. Yeah. And so.
Okay, so the frog is a perfect liminal character, because the frog, I think you tweeted about this as well. The frog lives both in water and on land, and so it's like it has a monstrous characteristic that it can cross over. It's one of those things that crosses over between worlds. And so you see that in the stories, like the story of the frog and the princess is a perfect example.
In the diagrams in my book, in Maps of Meaning, one of the diagrams is an egg shape that is the chaos into which things plunge. But chaos is an absolute state in some sense. It's the state of the unknown as such. And you never see the unknown as such. You always see something that's partly known and partly unknown. Yeah. And that's what the frog is, sitting on the edge of the pond. The frog enables you. So the frog is an emissary of chaos, roughly speaking.
Yeah.
And you only meet an emissary of chaos. You never meet chaos because it's
It's non-existence. It's
Right.
beyond being. It's below being, if you will.
right, exactly.
And so now this thing, like, well, two things. One is interesting is that Kermit the Frog is the same thing, because Kermit is a host. He's a host on a show, and so what he does is he transitions. He's the transition between different worlds. So you have
Right.
have an act, and then you have this transitional figure which appears, and then you have another act. And so
Right.
that's the role that Kermit the Frog plays on the Muppet Show.
Well, and his primary problem is with Miss Piggy, who's a really loud feminist.
That's hilarious. Okay, and now Pepe. So here's the metaphysics of Pepe. So
Okay.
so this is what's happening in the world right now. Is that there's a very strange situation where the people, like, let's say the right, we'll call them the right, or like the forces of order, or the let's say the norm, the people who create the norm for a society. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're in a situation where things have been inverted, and the people who supposedly in the narrative are the ones who create the norm are being marginalized. They're being
Right.
they're being pushed into the margins, right? And they're
Right.
being told, you're the ones who create the norm, and we're going to push you out into the margin. And so
You think that's why they've identified with the frog?
that's why they've identified with the
God.
frog, because the what happens is there's a strange inversion that happens, right? The power of inversion and the power of mocking and the power of humor is usually on the side of chaos. It's usually on the side of the power of the margin is the power
Yeah.
of question.
Well, I noticed this happening about 20 years ago. Is all the right wing had all the comedians. I thought, what the hell's going on here? The right wing doesn't have the comedians. It's the left that has the comedians. They're
Right.
the ones that are poking fun. So I
So the
thought the
strength of
world's
the
gone
party-
very strange that the comedians have become that the right wing has started to express itself in comedy.
Yeah, so that it's a sign that there's this strange inversion that's happening, and so there's an interesting, like, just a little footnote on this. Like in the Bible, there's a story that talks about this. It's the story of Elijah. So in the time of Elijah, Israel has been worshiping false gods because of the queen Jezebel, right? And Elijah, who is supposed to be the prophet of the God of those people, has become a marginal figure. And so his name is Elijah the Stranger, which is very odd, because he is supposed to be a prophet of God, and his tool is mockery. He mocks the prophets of Baal, and that's something that you actually don't see very often in the Bible, where the tool to kind of bring back order is through mockery. And so this is what we're seeing with this Pepe figure, is that Pepe is like an inversion machine. Okay, so the people who use Pepe, what they do is they take something like an insult that's being thrown at them, and they flip it around. They flip it around on those that insulted them. Like that's what you did with the Kermit thing, which is perfect. People are making fun of you because they say you sound like Kermit, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it into my strength. And that's what Pepe does. And so a lot of the crazy stuff that's coming out of this Pepe thing is part of that. There's a lot of dark things in the Pepe, like things that, like, personally I wouldn't necessarily want to touch.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I first saw the frog, the Pepe frog, I really recoiled from it. It's got this kind of underground comic horror associated with it that I really find distasteful. So like sort of viscerally distasteful,
Yeah. But I think it's kind of supposed to do that to you.
Yeah.
And that's part of the power of those that are using that image. Like, it's right there. If you look at it, it's right there in the first comic, like the first Pepe comic. You have it's very crass. But here's this frog, right, who goes to the toilet to urinate, but he pulls his pants down to his knees. And so he's doing something that usually if you pull your pants down to your knees, you're going to sit and do something else. But then he does that, but he stands. And so here's this, and he shows us his backside, right? So here's this strange power of inversion, which actually brings the man to stand back up. And so that's this double inversion that people who use this type of imagery are doing. And so even, it's like, let's say like the radical left winger saying, you're this, whatever, you're a white male controlling blah, 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 you're all these things. And the people who use these Pepe comics, they say yes, and they reflect that to you, and then the people who accuse them of that completely lose their mind. They completely lose their mind. But the only thing they're doing is you're saying, let's say that I'm a racist, this, blah, 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 and then they reflect that back to them. They invert it in a way because they're saying, here you go, I'll show you what you're telling me I am, and then the radical left wing lose their mind. And so it's kind of, and if you look at those people, like the alt-right people, they have this strange magic, right? Because if you look at Milo Yiannopoulos is a perfect example. Here is a half Greek, half Jewish, gay, Catholic, Trump supporting Englishman in America, and so nothing
talking to the Republicans.
Exactly. And so nothing people can throw at him will stick on him because he is the frog. Like, he is that marginal figure standing on the side, but he is that double inversion, and he's kind of, I don't know if he's trying, but what it seems like he's doing, he's bringing order back through like this double flip that's happening. Mm-hmm. It's very odd. It's a very odd time.
It's very strange. It's very strange
time. So anyways, I would just say, just be careful. It's a dangerous place to stand.
Yeah. I'm trying to be careful. Believe me, I've got lots of people that I'm talking to that are helping me formulate my arguments and articulate them properly, and like I'm doing my best to keep my feet on the ground and my eyes open and not to be angry about this, but to be in the chaos really, and not assume also that that's a catastrophe, because I don't know what's going to happen to me. I don't know if this is the worst thing that ever happened to me or the best thing that ever happened to me. I can't tell.
And once the solution will happen inside the chaos, right? The Jonah gets pulled down by the whale down into the depths of the ocean, and it's while he's in the belly of the whale that the solution comes to him. Like in this case, it's he has this moment of repentance where he turns around. Repentance is a flipping around, and so that this moment that he brings him into death turns into this baptism where he comes out and he goes into the city, right? So that's another part. But so the solution is going to come out of this chaos. But
if it's a really complex problem, you have to go very far into chaos to find a solution.
But there's always the risk of losing yourself when you're in chaos. So
definitely. That's right. I mean, that's the thing about dragons, is that they can eat you.
They can eat you.
That's why I don't like the new ageification of Carl Jung's thinking, and in part I think Joseph Campbell was responsible for that, although he did a lot of very good things. I mean, the thing about confronting the thing that you're afraid of is that the thing that you're afraid of is genuinely terrifying, and it can actually eat you, and it's eaten plenty of people before you, and so it's no joke. During this whole, let's call it, ride so far, I mean, what was going to happen, especially in the first couple of weeks, I mean, when I was being called a bigot and a transphobe and all of those things, and being pilloried essentially, at least within the university, for my views, it wasn't obvious at all that there was going to be any way of swimming out of it, let's say. So,
but it's very disturbing, because now you basically have these two monsters fighting each other. You have, let's say, this Pepe type frog, and that Pepe was declared a hate symbol by the Anti-Defamation League. You know that. I mean, that's very frightening. It's frightening that this is how far it's gone. How much it's like all of a sudden they can see the monster on the other side, but they don't see the monster on their side. Basically.